Joining me in this episode focused on the future of AI and HR are Enrique Rubio and Matt Burns. Enrique is an HR, tech, and future of work expert, keynote speaker, and founder of Global Communities. He's currently an advisor to the community he built, Hacking HR, which is a global learning community operating at the intersection of the future of work, technology, business, and organizations with thousands of members all over the world, and is also the head of Global Community at Transform. He's also ranked as one of the top 100 HR global influencers. Matt Burns is the co-founder and CEO of Atlas Copilot, the world's first AI knowledge copilot for people leaders. Atlas Copilot's mission is to fundamentally transform the way HR professionals, teams, and other people leaders do their work, and increases the value they can offer by empowering them with the latest in generative AI technology. And together, they're now doing the AI HR podcast presented by Hacking HR. Enjoy this conversation. You're listening to Working Forward, a future of work focused podcast from People Forward Network. These episodes pave the road ahead, helping us confidently step into the future as a leader who moves people forward. After all, the best way to predict the future is to create it. Let's go. Matt and Enrique, hey, it's good to have you guys.
It's good to be here.
Hello.
Yeah, so what are we going to talk about today? We got 2 hours. By the way, this is our first long-form video podcast for Working Forward. So we had to go out and we had to find the two most handsome guys that we could get on the show since we're flipping to video. Those other two guys couldn't show up, so we're stuck with you guys today.
Sorry about that.
Right. But no, we got a lot to talk about, and I'm so excited that we're kicking off the relaunch of Working Forward with you two, because there's a lot going on in the world right now when it comes to artificial intelligence, when it comes to Web3, when it comes to what the heck is our economy even going to look like? What's HR going to look like? And you two are experts in this to have a conversation. So I'm excited to see where we can go today. Let's start here. There's a lot of stuff being talked about out there about AI, about HR. I tend to think a lot of it is BS, but how about you guys? What are some of the things that you're hearing right now that are hot topics? Things that might be true, things that might be myths too. What are the things that really have your ear right now around this topic?
Matt, you want to go ahead? Matt is closer to these conversations on a daily basis.
I don't know about that. I think we're all close to this conversation, whether we like it or not. I think that's part of it. I think what I'm hearing, Jason, is what you said, which is there's a lot of chatter in the market, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of people positioning themselves as experts who are not. And I think anyone who tells you they have it all figured out is not telling you the truth.
Yeah.
We are, as an organization, as a society, as a species, try to figure out how we look at things like Moore's Law in the context of AI and ask ourselves how much change is too much change? How fast is too fast? When it comes to AI, I'm an eternal optimist. So I look at the benefits of artificial intelligence and say, what an incredible solution to democratize access to information. What an incredible solution to free us from manual administration so we can spend our time doing things we actually want to be doing in HR and other administrative functions. But I'm not naive to the fact that that's not going to come without some disruption. That is not going to change jobs. That's not going to lead to job loss. That's not going to lead to, traditionally when it came to technological innovations, whether it's the Industrial Revolution or even more recently in like the 70s and 80s, the affected parties have traditionally been your trades, your air quotes, blue collar workforce. AI isn't like that. AI has no discernment. It will affect blue collar. It will affect white collar. It will affect junior resources. It will affect senior resources. And, Jason, one thing I read the other day was, organizations like Salesforce, they're not going to hire engineers anymore. We went from a world where 5 years ago, the full stack developer was a prized commodity in every organization, in every industry, in every part of the world. And now we're talking about those skill sets being completely obsolete in the course of the next 18, 24 months. So there's a lot going on we're hearing in the market. And I think what we're trying to do is just make sense of it in our own context. And as an AI organization at Atlas Copilot, we're trying to do our part to educate the market because there's a lot of fear out there that may or may not be justified. But I think on balance, what excites me is we as humans, as entrepreneurs, as professionals, have the opportunity to influence this. And that's what I'm excited about.
You said 18 to 24 months, like full stack developers, like that skill set or that job could be either gone or greatly diminished demand for it. That makes me think of like, have you ever seen those lists of like jobs that no longer exist anymore? Like things like there used to be people when elevators were first created, like in hotels, like there was an elevator operator. You'd hop in the elevator and there'd be somebody there dressed up really nice, the hotel, taking you up and down to the different floors and stuff like that. Some of the other jobs I thought about before that may eventually be obsolete here pretty soon. What about like customer support? Is that going to be like fully AI potentially?
Taxi drivers,
bank tellers. You'd already talked about software programmers. How about retirement professionals, certified retirement professionals? Will AI potentially be able to do that better? Fast food cooks. So just a few off the top of my head. But what you said there was so profound, because it's like sometimes we think like, oh, this is only going to be the blue collar type jobs, and it's not. Things when it comes to lawyers, when it comes to accounting, this disruption is going to hit white collar as well. Enrique, are you hearing things around that too, or are you seeing data similar to what Matt said of this type of disruption of the types of jobs that are going to go away?
Yeah. Well, before getting there, when you go back in history and you look at the periods of technological disruption, especially over the past maybe couple of 100 years, every piece of technology that was ever created in every one of the industrial revolutions was meant generally to amplify or augment human physical capabilities. Not all of them, probably not any of them, were designed to augment human cognitive capabilities, right? Let alone replace those cognitive capabilities. That may have happened with the computer revolution of the 1970s, which was the third industrial revolution. And it amplified humanity. It amplified our cognitive capacities. But at the end of the day, it was a tool for the expansion of our physical capabilities, right? To do things faster, to process data faster, and analyze things faster and more efficiently, and whatnot. What concerns me about AI is that AI is not a tool for the amplification of physical capabilities. It is a tool for the amplification and replacement of human cognitive capabilities. And even if we are not there fully, full-fledged there yet, it is going to happen. I mean, like, you listen to Sam Altman and, Mark Zuckerberg, and these guys building, massive AI models, and they are telling you, I think it was OpenAI, they said this year we were able to do artificial general intelligence, or general artificial intelligence for a few minutes, meaning there was a computer that was able to replicate full human cognitive capacities, right? That's, to me, it's hard to believe, but it's going to happen. And that, to me, is concerning, because indeed what that means is that every single job is at risk. It's not just the cook in the McDonald's. It's not just the accountant. It's not just the lawyer. It is the team manager. Are we going to be reporting to an AI team manager, right, who is able to process data and provide feedback on the spot and do all of these things in seconds with very, very similar or comparable human capabilities than a human team manager would have, with empathy, with compassion, with kindness, and you name it, right? So I think there's a big opportunity right now to leverage on AI, but at the same time, I'm very concerned that I don't think we are still understanding the true impact that this will have in society, right? I mean, we continue to say, and I am one of them, by the way, we continue to say, oh, if we use AI, that's going to give us the opportunity to free up some time to do more of what we love to do. But what we love to do can be done by AI at some point too, right? If we like to create a piece of music, imagine, if you have watched movies about, Beethoven or Mozart, these guys would have spent a week just on one key to see what was the best key that would go with the previous key. AI can do that and can provide you with 1,000,000 iterations telling you, Matt likes this key as the next key. Jason likes this key as the next key. Enrique likes this key as the next key. And it will do it in a second. I don't know necessarily that that's the world that I want to see, but I'm going to guess that that's probably a world that we will see and we will witness. So I think every job is at risk. Some of them at 100% of risk, some others at a significant risk, but every job is a risk. And I'm gonna end with this. AI does not need to be perfect. That's the one thing that that I don't think we have fully grasped that idea. AI does not need to be perfect, but if AI is capable of replicating human behaviors from the perspective of the technical things that we do and from the perspective of the human things that we do, if AI is capable of replicating 85% of those capabilities, imagine what that means for an organization that has a human doing some kind of work or a team of people doing some kind of work that now can be done by one AI and one person moving the 85% to 100%, like completing that extra 15% gap in there, right? So AI does not need to be perfect. It just needs to be good enough to create a case for you to say, why am I going to have all these people working in here? So I'm optimistic like Matt, but I'm not fully myself. I think we are about to witness some real complicated transition between this world in which we're now and that world where AI will be everywhere.
So I'd never thought about it in those terms, Enrique. So you talked about how most of the advancements that we've ever experienced have been to enhance the physical labor aspects of what we do. And then here is this, we're finally getting something that's more intelligent than we are, that can do things cognitively more advanced than we can. That makes sense. I mean, one of the things, the reason I brought that myth up is one of the things that just has kind of been a pet peeve of mine that I see a lot that's being tossed around. And it's not just being tossed around, by regular. I mean, there are some well-known thought leaders that are using this phrase. And the phrase is, you won't be replaced by AI, but you'll be replaced by someone who knows how to use AI.
I mean, I say that.
And to your point, I don't think that's true. I think that might be true for some jobs, but I think to your point is, I think we're being short-sighted or foolish, just from what AI can do today compared to what it's going to be able to do 6 months, 2 years from now. Who are we to say that it may not be able to do a lot more different types of roles or tasks in organizations? And if that is the case, to your point, what does that mean? What are the things that we should be doing? So maybe, what do you think about that? So if that's the case, let's say that it does get to that point where there is more job displacement than what's currently being projected or put out there. What do you think that means in terms of what should the government be doing to make sure that we're supporting people? What should the economy look like? And just because AI can do those things, should it?
What government are you talking about? Are you talking about the European Union or Trump's administration or the headless Canadian government where my friend Matt is from? So
that's right.
Yeah, I think Enrique is spot on. I think it matters. The context really matters. And I think that you're going to see different applications in different parts of the world. So I think, and this is where the globalization question comes into play pretty early on in this question, because there'll be some nations, I put the US at the top of that list, that traditionally shun any kind of welfare state. So the idea of doing universal basic income is probably a bridge too far for most American voters and most American politicians in 2024, 2025. It might change, but I'm not super optimistic. I see that probably happening more in jurisdictions like France, Italy, Greece, Scandinavia, where there's more of a record of high taxation, high services, and displacement would come with an understanding that if people lose their jobs en masse, it affects society en masse. And I think that's the piece that's missing. I think Jason, I don't think the situation that we find ourselves in today is malicious. I just don't think a lot of people understand the implications of it's facing us right now. I think people are sincere when they say AI will not replace jobs. People who use AI will replace people who don't, because that's where we are today. But I don't think it's going to take very long for us to graduate to a world where AI can replace jobs fundamentally, or at least constrict jobs. I mentioned earlier, Salesforce has already said, we're no longer hiring full-stack developers anymore. So they're not losing workforce, but they're not growing their workforce. And as they see attrition, they're not going to replace the workforce. So, but they still intend to have a human in the loop. So to Enrique's point, the engineering team, which I'm sure is thousands of people, might become hundreds in the future. But the impact of society of thousands of engineers losing their jobs is fundamental in a space where that affects most of our economies are consumption economies. If we lose jobs at that scale, who is going to support the services sector, the retail sector, the hospitality sector?
Who's going to buy anything?
right? And that becomes the situation where the haves and the have-nots, that gap that's already grown to a place that's almost untenable if it's not already there, is going to get more exacerbated because those that are at the top of that mountain who have the access to those resources, have the access to the AI to do things at scale, will benefit disproportionately to those that don't. And that's where I get a bit concerned about the next step, because I don't know that we have a good roadmap, and I see many different people having many different perspectives. If you look at the American view, I think they would say to you, survival of the fittest. The best person will win. Not entirely true in a lot of cases, but that's what they would say, is that the cream rises to the top in the United States. In other cultures, they would just say something different. They would say it's more of a, in Germany, in their stock market, for example, it's not just simply to enrich the shareholder and drive shareholder value. Survivability of the firm is part of the equation in Germany when they look at stocks and look at organizational health. So certain jurisdictions will look at this differently, but when you look at the world en masse, the countries that take a more exploitative view around AI will have an advantage over the ones that don't. And when I look at the future, I always look at the incentives. So the incentives tell me as much about what's going to happen as anything else. The talking points are talking points. People change their minds every day, and fake news has risen into prominence over the last 8 years. But in a world where profitability and consumption and share price are the ways in which we drive and judge value, using AI in an exploitative fashion is a very quick shortcut to doing that. That's what concerns me, is that people won't be able to look past their individual circumstances and say, oh, it's great, our company is 25% more efficient. We laid off 8,000 workers. What's the impact to society of laying off 8,000 workers? That to me is a bigger question, and I don't know if we have a good answer for that.
You mean we can't just trust corporate greed is going to be set off to the side and we'll start making good decisions for people?
They have a fiduciary responsibility to raise the share price. That if you're a board member at a publicly traded company, they have a sole fiduciary responsibility to enrich the shareholder. Even if they wanted to, Jason, say, you know what, AI is a tool for good and we want to create UBI and we want to democratize access to knowledge and do all these great things around DEI. Legally speaking, they're bound to making decisions at the publicly traded company level that enrich the shareholder. Now, privately held companies, government institutions, different not-for-profits, different incentives. But for those big publicly traded companies, profitability is key.
That's such a good point. One of the things I've been thinking about that ties into that, Matt, is, if we go there, if there is a lot more job displacement, one of the things I'm curious about, I did a little bit of research here. I want to put some of these numbers in front of you guys and get your thoughts and reactions to them. But is one of the shifts that we'll see, we're going to have fewer large companies, large organizations that maybe are going to start laying off staff. They're going to start bringing on more AI. But to offset that, might we see more startups, more entrepreneurial organizations that maybe have 10 or fewer staff? Are we going to start to see more smaller companies, small businesses? Is the makeup of the economy compared to the number of large corporations? Here's just a few numbers I want to throw in front of you from what I was able to find so far. Currently, around 47.5% just of American private sector workforce works in the larger corporations. And then we've got about 46% in the private sector in the U.S. that work for small businesses. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they define that as like 500 staff or fewer. The year-to-year growth so far of the number of new small businesses is 2.5%. I know that everyone's like, well, what's 2.5%? Here's some numbers that go with that. That means an average of 430,000 new business applications are happening per month. That was in 2024, which is 50% more than the number of new business applications that were happening in 2019. So I think there are some indicators that we've already started to see a gradual shift of more the larger corporations that are starting to do layoffs, that have been starting to work this direction of laying people off, but we're starting to see more applications, more smaller businesses pick up, maybe leaner teams. I'm wondering, is that maybe what the economy will start to look like a little bit more, instead of being so top-heavy, that it is going to be more of a diversified portfolio of smaller companies? What do you guys think?
Well, I think a couple of things. So I think fragmentation in the market is a cyclical thing, and it's happened before, it'll happen again. So you see consolidation and fragmentation across many different segments, usually due to external factors. AI is going to be a disruptive force that will lead to fragmentation in the market and lead to workforce reductions. I was listening to a podcast recently that featured Sam Altman talking about the world's first solo entrepreneur billion-dollar cap company. Like the first solo entrepreneur unicorn venture. That's not a pipe dream. Like with AI, you have the ability to scale very, very quickly. I can tell you at Atlas Copilot, our organization fluctuates kind of between that 20 and 30 mark. We're doing things that would have taken us hundreds of employees previously because we have AI, because we have thoughtful integrations, because we've built our system around the future. So I think you are going to see smaller organizations, but I also think you're going to see the rise of workers being more into the gig economy, having more side hustles, and realizing that the safety that once came with working in large organizations, which was the trade-off, by the way, right? The reason you worked in a big company was because you had the security of knowing this company is going to be there when things aren't great. That's going away. If you look at the list of companies that are laying off staff and have done so over the last 10 years, working in a big company isn't what it once was in terms of security. So I think you're going to see more people look for different opportunities, multiple opportunities as a method of spreading around their risk, as a means of trying to keep up, as a means of trying to change their circumstances. And you're going to see more and more of that, more small companies, more people working side hustles, multiple jobs, freelance. I think the technology will allow us to plug into the economy in a way where it'll be like showing up to a job shop 20 years ago and asking for a job in a part-time construction role. And now it'll be plugging into an online platform and doing a week's worth of work on a project, getting paid for that, and then bouncing. So I think you'll see much more of that, and the technology will allow for that. I'm really excited to see how that plays out, because I do think it allows for more human autonomy and more empowerment of the workforce. I'll be curious to see how that plays out, though, in reality.
I've got a case in point to share with that real quick. And then Enrique, I know you got some things you want to share.
It's a joke what I'm going to share, but go ahead.
I love it. Good. We'll need a good laugh after I share this next thing here. Chief financial officer, good friend of mine, and has worked for a lot of successful companies, and is finally kind of like, you know what, I kind of want to have like my own side gig, thing that I'm doing on the side. The guy already, he's brilliant, but he already works a tremendous number of hours, but he's seeing the same thing that you're talking about, Matt. He's like, you know what, all these years that I've just relied on someone else, I've trusted them, that they'll just take care of me and take care of my family. He's starting to have more of those questions of like, no, I want to have something off to the side that I'm starting to build now that I could always rely on off to the side. And if it just stays a side thing and it just provides a little bit of supplemental income, that's fine. But if it ever would need to become the main entree, like if this other thing goes away, that he's got that safety net that he can rely on. And this is someone very successful, very high-ranking, important position in some very successful companies. And I just think, hey, if someone like that is saying, I may not be safe, I should always be thinking about having a backup plan, something that I can pour myself into, then probably most of us, right, should be thinking that way just to be safe. All right, Enrique, we need a joke. Come on, man.
Well, it wasn't going to be exactly a joke, but it was going to be more of an anecdote of this guy. I don't know how they reported on him, and they created an article somewhere on him. I think he was a programmer, by the way. He was working 3 jobs at the same time. So he had so they took a picture of him, and he had 3 computers with these massive screens open, and he was doing like a couple of lines of coding here, asking AI to help out over there, and doing the other thing over here. So I mean, it's funny, but yeah, the guy was making 3 salaries at once because he was able to leverage technology to do it all so quickly that it was his employers would never be able to notice, right? I'm sure eventually we're gonna have some models allowing us to determine when that's happening, but it was happening. So anyway, not so much of a joke, but a real anecdote of people already doing that, but doing it at the same time. And I'm going to guess that if they do that for 5 hours a day, 3 jobs at the same time, then life must be very good. The rest of the time that is not those 5 hours.
Right. Could you imagine, though, if you fired off the wrong email? Like if you got like 3 laptops going or 3 monitors, you're like, oh no, I just sent that email to the wrong company.
I don't need to imagine that. That's already happened.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that some of those guys are also like very aware of kind of like how to control their appearances, right? So that that they don't do the wrong thing, but you never know, right? That's when AI will kick in and will hold an email for a few minutes until you're totally sure that that's the actual email. And it's going to tell you like, hey, I'm sending this email to Matt. Are you sure that it goes to Matt? That's the kind of things that we're going to be seeing.
And Jason, back to your previous point. I mean, I people have asked me a lot. I was a corporate executive for 20 years, worked in lots of big companies, as did Enrique. When people have asked me in the past why I chose to go into entrepreneurship, I give them the standard answer. I wanted more autonomy over my schedule. I wanted to make a bigger impact. I wanted to be part of something that was more transformative. But honestly, part of it was with this conversation. I was a professional meeting host in my last job as a CHRO. I would spend 50 to 60 hours a week as a CHRO and be in meetings from 7:30 in the morning till 6:30 at night, 5 days a week, most of the time. And I had teams of people working with me. I was working cross-functionally with other executives and other teams, but I spent most of my time in meetings. It won't be too long, Jason, before we're sending avatars on our behalf to meetings and they're talking to each other and then getting us the output of that. Like, I could see back then that being really good at running meetings wasn't going to be enough to save you. And I think what you're going to see in the next 12 to 18 months is a lot of middle management roles going away. A lot of people who are shifting work between the executive and the people who are actually doing the tasks, that's going away because, to your earlier point, technology will be the intermediary between the strategy and the application of the strategy. And I didn't want to find myself in a position where I didn't have choices, where I didn't have any skills that were transferable. So I thought, if I become an entrepreneur, I'm going to learn a whole bunch of skills that are not currently in my toolbox. Like, I don't know how to do a social media campaign or build a personal brand or go and sell or develop an operational strategy. Like, these are all things that other people did that I worked with, but I would be the one running the meeting and holding them accountable to deadlines and timelines and moving roadblocks and all those types of things. But we're getting to a place now where simply being an intermediary is not good enough. You're going to have to provide some tangible value. And if I was an executive like your friend as a CFO, I would be thinking the same thing, which is, how do I create some redundancy in a situation where if tomorrow he loses his job, well, I'm sure he'll have some severance and a bit of a runway, but the question is, will he be able to find another job that's similar to the one that he has right now to go back to? Or is he going to be limited in his ability and be, I don't know about you, but I never want a position where I'm stuck. Like, I don't want to have to choose between one option. I want to have multiple options, especially in today's volatile world. So I think understanding the market, building translatable skills, not necessarily having a side hustle, but at least being curious and learning about what's going on out there will help people understand how they can maximize the opportunity in front of us. Because if you take the bull by the horns, to use a tired analogy, you can actually have a significant positive impact on using AI and using automation if you're on the right side of the equation. If you're on the wrong side of the equation, unfortunately, like every other technology innovation, there are haves and there are have-nots. And I'm hopeful that there'll be many more haves than have-nots, and that those that have will choose and see fit to share with those that are have-nots.
Which side do you think HR is going to kind of be in? When you think about the future of HR, like, there have already been a lot of conversations. Enrique, I know you've been a big part of this, of trying to get HR to elevate the game and have that seat at the table, but not only have the seat, but to be the one leading strategy, saying this is how we're going to win in the market, and supporting, the CEOs, the presidents, the VPs. What do you think the future of HR is going to look like?
Well, I hate to put it this bluntly, but there will be winners and there will be a lot of losers in this journey. And when I talk about losers, I don't mean people as being losers, right? I mean people like will face negative consequences of the rise and the rise of AI in the workplace. And what happens with a function like AI, like HR, is that still most HR departments and most HR people are on the transactional side of HR, right? And I hate to say it because, I have spent a significant amount of time over the past few years elevating HR, but still, there's a good group of people, there's a cohort of people that they want to do HR differently. They want to think about HR differently. They want to build the innovative kind of HR, but it's not the majority. There are still many people in HR who are either because that's the job that they have to do in their companies, or because that's the way they think about HR, or both. They are on the more transactional side of things, right? So from those people who are still the majority of HR, who are on the transactional side of things, there are people who have built their own mental, physical, emotional capabilities to learn, and to learn quickly. But there are other people who have not. It's like, it's like having a family where you don't force anybody to go to the gym, and some people in your family do go to the gym, and then the rest, they don't go to the gym. So if one day you got to go running out there because there's a bear, chasing you, probably the ones who have gone to the gym are the ones who will be, I don't know, surviving, right? What happens in HR, to follow a similar analogy, is that some people have been working out, and they have been strengthening their mental muscle. They have been learning, not because it is a mandate from their company, not because they need the freaking HR credits from some association out there, but because they want to learn, but because they want to do HR differently. And some other people have not done that. Some other people are content to just do their HR transaction, and they do it day in and day out. And that transaction, whatever it is, that administration will be replaced by AI if it's not being replaced already by AI. And once again, like going to what Matt was saying before, if I am the CEO of a company, if I am the board of a company, and I work in a big or a small company, and I have a mandate to maximize equity for our or profit for our shareholders, and I say, well, AI can do the job that 3 or 4 of my 10 people recruitment team are doing right now, I don't think I need 10 recruiters anymore. Let me see who of them has been keeping up with all that is happening, who can manage the technology and can manage the human side of the interactions. But those who are not up at that level, we are going to have to let them go. I don't like that. I don't agree with that being the case, but it will be the case, right? Because again, you have to maximize your profits, and if you have to maximize your profits, which again, it's the in the US at least, our companies are sick with not capitalism; they are sick with greed. I am a capitalist, but this is not capitalism. This is greed and an oligarchy, by the way. But we can have another conversation about that at some other point. But when you have a company that is so centered only on making profit, when AI can do part or 80% or 60% of what their HR teams are doing, they will fire those people, and they will fire especially the ones who have not kept up with advancement, with learning, with technology, with new things, with innovation and whatnot. So I think there's a good group of people who is on the right side of the equation on AI, people who have been learning and who are already leveraging AI. On the other side of the equation, on the more transactional side of HR, there are people who, even though that's the job they do right now, they have been keeping up with the advancements of technology, particularly AI. But I think the overwhelming majority is not there yet. And I say this with a sense of concern, but also a call for urgency, right? I want to create a sense of urgency in these people. Your job, nobody's job is protected anymore. And we knew this before. Nobody's job is safe anymore. But right now, it's less safe than it ever was before. So if that doesn't create a sense of urgency, like if I was one of those HR people just doing transaction every day, I would have spent a weekend thinking, number one, is my job going to be here, in the next 6 to 12 months? So number one, do I have any indication that this job will remain where it is? Number two, if this job was to be eliminated, will they make me do something else in my company? Am I qualified? Do I have the skills to do something else in this company, or am I going to be laid off? Right? At number three, I would ask myself, am I employable outside of this organization? Do I have the right skills? Do I have the right tools, the right mindset to find another job? Or like Matt was saying before, to create my own side gig? Do I have those skills? And if you reach answers that make you feel that you're not employable, that you may not get another job in the same company, or that your job would be replaced, holy smokes. I mean, if that doesn't create a sense of urgency in you, I don't know what would, right? So long answer to say HR is spread out, but still The overwhelming majority is on the transactional side of things. And from that group, an overwhelming majority of that group is needs a sense of urgency to catch up.
Well, I think that's a shared responsibility. So the analogy I use, Jason, is supply and demand economic terms. So if the HR profession is going to change, we have to address both supply and demand. Supply is what we teach HR people. It's the educational institutions, the professional associations. It's the gas you put in your car's engine, to use an old analogy. On the demand side, though, this is what companies expect from HR people. We could spin out a whole bunch of really self-actualized, strategic, technology-enabled HR people from universities. But if companies still want them to manage policies and keep them out of court, it's not going to move the needle. So I think both need to shift. There needs to be an appreciation of the role that HR can play in a future state where AI is ubiquitous. And it's why when Enrique and I speak at conferences or we're on podcasts, a couple topics come up pretty regularly. The first one is, how do we deploy data and analytics and make decisions with it and tell stories? But the one that I get most frequently is, how do you build a business case for HR? And that includes everything from the financial business case. So in the context of AI, I look at it like this. If you're going to introduce a disruptive technology that's going to introduce efficiencies within your workforce at a nominal cost, that's going to free up bandwidth of your resources to do other things. If you don't have a perspective on what they're going to spend their time doing in a world where they gain more time, I promise you your CFO does. And it will look like job loss, because they'll say, hey, you freed up this many hours. We can translate this hours into an FTE equivalent, and that equals 2 headcount. Let me know who's going to leave the organization next month when we do job losses, because we'll just reconcile the work, consolidate it to the remaining team members, and bring in AI. Or, and this is what I encourage HR executives to do, is have a plan. So if you're going to bring AI into your HR practice and redefine your service level agreement and change your strategy, and you're going to realize efficiencies in the neighborhoods of 10, 20, 30%, what are you going to do with the extra being a really weird term here, but the extra resources that you have? Are they going to be dedicated towards employment branding, HR business partner activities, compensation? And the bias should always be towards revenue generating functions, between functions that add direct value to the business. Because if you just say, hey, we're going to build more training programs, it's not going to cut it. So there's an element of empowerment here that requires education. But to Enrique's point, HR professionals need to know the art of the possible involving technology so they can be informed in these conversations and not just wait for the day where finance calls them into a room and says, hey, we need to see headcount reduction across the organization by 12% because we're bringing in AI. You can say, hey guys, I've done some analysis preemptively. I can save the company 15% in HR, and this is how I determine we can redeploy the resources so we can drive more enterprise value. I've done that throughout my entire career, and there's almost always an audience for it if you're proactive. If you're chasing it and someone says the plan A is workforce reduction, you say, well, plan B is redeployment. It's going to be a harder sell if the first case was wage reduction. So I think it's incumbent upon people like myself, like Enrique, who've been in the seat, who've seen it on both sides, to provide people with access to knowledge and resources and just reality to say, hey, have a perspective, have a thought. If a third of your job goes away, how are you going to spend your time? And I would love to tell you it's going to be with your kids. It's going to be with your friends. You're going to have more spare time. We're going to go to a 4-day work week. Probably not a reality in the short term. So how are we going to spend our time that's going to benefit the enterprise so you can be part of the solutioning and not be on the other end of somebody else's solution?
That's so good. If I could just summarize the brilliance you guys just shared, it sounds like we need to start getting hairy in HR. It needs to not just be HR, it's got to be human and AI relations. There you go, Enrique. I tell you what, put that on a t-shirt, your next Hacking HR events, set it up in the merch shop. Let's get hairy in HR. That's what we're going to do for the future.
I need some of that myself, by the way. Yeah.
Got a fine head of hair there. I love that.
But I want to add something, Jason. Like it's,
man.
I believe that this promise of AI, and I think Matt said something about this before. If we don't have radical government intervention, which doesn't seem that it's going to happen in the US, at least not in the next 4 years, But it will probably happen in Canada, and it will probably happen in Latin American countries. It will certainly happen in the EU. If we don't have government intervention, it is the richest people, that top 0.001% of the world, who will reap the benefits of the AI revolution at the expense of the rest of us. If you think about it, we have inequalities growing significantly. I think, you see the numbers, something like, the top 100 richest people in the world have the same wealth than the bottom 4 billion people of the world. There's no AI revolution that can solve that. You need government intervention. And I am hoping that at least in the US, people who believe in free market, right, and people like me, who believe in government, but also believe in capitalism, that we know that we are going to need to push and pressure government to regulate how AI is going to work, the responsibility that companies have. I remember Bill Gates saying, I think this was like 4 or 5 years ago, he said something like, we should tax robots. If you are using employees who are robots, they should have a tax as if they were, probably more, but as if they were human employees. Because somebody will have to pay for those people who are losing their jobs. And it should not fall, that responsibility shouldn't fall on society alone. It should fall also on that company, right? So I say this because, again, I'm going back to my circle of concern, which is, I think there are great opportunities with AI, but there's no, this is just going with no roadmap, no regulations, just a handful of people saying the way this is going, it's dangerous, right? We need to make sure that we're putting on the pit stops that we need to put on, that we put the regulations in place, so that at the end of the day, yes, we have time to spend with our kids and hanging out in the mountains, whatever we want, but not at the expense of, our survival, our health, our long-term, happiness, and, revenue for our governments and our societies. So anyway, just want to make sure this goes way beyond HR, by the way. This is not an HR conversation, but it's one that I'm hoping that we can enlighten people about, because we will have to vote when we vote for the people who talk about this. We can't ignore this anymore. When you have somebody telling you free market, everybody does whatever they want. No, not in the AI revolution. You need to vote for people who tell you, we gotta do something about this. We gotta look into this and fix it, right? So, that's part of our responsibility. I don't know if Matt has any thought about this.
I'm torn, because the human part of me agrees with Enrique wholeheartedly, because I don't want to see people suffer. I want to see people, because here's the sad thing about this conversation, and why I'm excited about AI in parallel. You could have both. You can be more profitable and create better workplaces. You don't have to choose. In most of the previous innovations, you had to choose between doing the right thing or doing the profitable thing. AI unlocks both. You can bring AI into an administrative organization, into a services organization, into a trades organization, and realize economies of scale, automate the manual repetitive administration that nobody likes to do, and do it more effectively, and provide better service to your customers and to your employees, and make more money. My concern is that we'll take a very one-sided view and just make the more money part and then forget the first part. So that's the piece where I'm a little bit at odds with what to do. And part of it is, I don't know that we are really built for this as a society, because we're so used to doing incremental change. There's nothing about AI that's incremental. And my fear is that by the time we actually realize the impact of what we have or have not done, it'll be too late. And the impact will have been done. So that's the piece where I think to Enrique's point, we need to get more educated about what's happening in our organizations, what's happening for ourselves. We need to be more thoughtful about our careers. And if you're not 6 months from retirement and you're going to be in the workforce for a period of time, this is going to affect your job. So how is it going to affect your job? Maybe some more than others, but you should have a perspective on that. And you should be, if you have risk in your role, if you're a bookkeeper in accounting, if you're a HR coordinator, if you're a sales administrator, if you're a reservation booker in a hotel, any of these roles that, again, to your earlier point, Jason, these were prized, valued, corporate, white-collar, aspirational roles for many. When those roles go away, what replaces them? And do we have the skills to fill those roles? Because as much as I do believe AI will create many, many opportunities. I mean, there wasn't a prompt engineer in the world 2 years ago, and now they're popping up all over the place. And there'll be many more jobs that are created. But do we have the skills? And that's why at Atlas Copilot, we've been so passionate about upskilling and reskilling HR teams, is to help them understand where they are and where they want to be, and then using AI to bridge that gap for them, including upskilling their knowledge around AI. So if we can do that really well and match the skills to the future opportunities, it'll mitigate. It won't remove the damage, but it will mitigate the damage. It'll exacerbate it if we don't.
You know, as you guys are talking there, one of the things that I was thinking in my head was, you know, we're kind of still operating in a Model T version of the economy.
Totally.
And we're jumping straight to flying cars type of economy. Right? Like supply and demand. Yeah, we get that. That's the basic of economics, Matt. I think you were talking about that earlier, even with respect to the HR function. But if you think about it, like once we unlock the AI capability along with human capability in companies, traditionally what we've done in the economy is, hey, if we're starting to see inflation issues, then it's time for us to raise the interest rates up because we're going to pull on the demand side levers, make it more challenging for people to access capital, make it more challenging for them to go out because essentially, like production, the supply side can't keep up with the demand side. Well, guess what? In the future, that is probably not going to be the case. Once we unlock that AI capability of coming along with humans, the supply side is probably going to be able to keep up with demand. And so what does that mean in terms of maybe some of these old processes the Federal Reserve has done, you know, in terms of stabilizing the economy or keeping it healthy, where we just adjust interest rates? What if now we have an economy where the supply side can keep up with demand because we've unlocked those abilities? What does that mean for the economy? What does that mean in terms of the ability for there to potentially be mechanisms to have pathways toward more fair payments for people? The taxation of robots, of AI itself, I think that's fascinating too. And another one, thinking about what could HR in the future, what could a lot of that role and responsibility be beyond just a lot of the checking the box type stuff, now the transactional things, as you put it? At some point, a lot of people are going to have an AI agent as their boss.
Yeah.
That they're going to be reporting to, right? I mean, there may be folks listening be like, whatever, like that will happen, right? And so
They may
what
not
does
call
that
it
mean
that.
from an ethics standpoint of now if you have non-human intelligence, artificial intelligence that is in your organization and is going to be doing any type of performance evaluations, engaging with humans, like you should probably have a pretty good strategy and plan around human AI interactivity, human AI dynamics. And to me, that would be something where when we think about future of HR, wouldn't that be wonderful if a lot of our HR leaders, that's just one specific thing, start thinking through that, start saying to their senior leaders, hey, we know it's here. We need to start thinking about the risks, the benefits, but also what does this mean in terms of what our actual workplace is going to look like when we have these hybrid teams of humans and AI agents working together? What does it mean in terms of a lot of our HR functions? Some of them may go away. Some are going to need to be changed. Some of them we haven't even dreamed of yet. We may need to dream up new ways to make sure that it's being done. Any reactions or thoughts to some of those things in terms of what the future could look like for HR?
Well, just a couple of things. The first one is that, you know, I will believe in the real power of AI. I believe in it right now, right? But this is like sarcastic, right? But I will believe in the power of AI when I can sit in my computer, I talk to my AI agent, and my AI agent orders the groceries for me, pays the stuff for me, my bills, you know, electric and gas and stuff. And when they do the mundane, annoying things that I dislike to do, and they can be done pretty easily, you know, making the freaking appointment to renew my driver's license. You know, hey, you know, Enrique AI, make my appointment. That's when things will get real, and it will happen. By the way, I don't know when, but it will happen. That kind of AI agent, which is your AI agent representing you in all these mundane, transactional, but very annoying and time-consuming activities. Oh my gosh, that would be awesome to have something like that, and I know it's going to happen. We're not there yet. We may need more integration to get there, but it will happen. So going back to your actual AI agent in the workplace, whether it is your employee buddy, your partner in the workplace, right, that is doing stuff for you that you don't need to do, I think that would be phenomenal. If you have more time to actually think and have conversations and be more human while the transaction is run by this AI agent, whether it is your peer, your subordinate, or your boss, I think that is phenomenal. We do have to create some governance around that. I mean, that's which is, going back to what you were saying, we need to create some governance because there will be implications to this, I mean, like how creative you want your AI agent to be, how formal or informal, how, whatever, like, for example, me, right? I mean, in my conversations, in my day-to-day interactions with anybody, I tend to say a lot of bad words, which I haven't said any in this podcast today, by the way. So I deserve a little bit of a pat in the back to be able to control myself in that way. But do I want my AI agent to go out there and talk the way I talk? You may say, well, Enrique, that is so mundane, right? That is so, so nitty gritty. But the truth is not. Because when I talk to people, I ask them first, like, is it okay if I say bad words? Because that's the way I talk. If they say no, I got to respect that. So my AI agent, there's got to be the framework, right? There's got to be the guardrails that tells that AI agent, no, you can't talk to this person using bad words because that person doesn't like it, and that's mundane, but it's part of what your AI mirror would be when that AI mirror is representing you out there. I think we're a little farther from that, but when I say a little farther, I'm talking about, what, Matt, 12 months from having AI agents like that, maybe less?
We already have them. It's called Siri and Alexa.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Right? Like we have these, they're just in an earlier stage of evolution, and they aren't capable yet of booking you a trip on a travel and charging your credit card and sending you the itinerary. It's coming. And as soon as Apple or Google or Amazon figures out how to do the integrations that Enrique is talking about and build their marketplaces, we will have Siri or Alexa or Google be your interface, and you'll be able to do this through voice and give those directions and get those requirements. Jason, you asked about the impact to HR. And I think that's a really important question. And I think I'll be transparent. When we built Atlas, we built the organization structure in a very traditional software fashion, hierarchical. As a CEO, top of the pyramid, I have some other co-founders and senior executives, top of the house. We have people reporting into us, and the pyramid works its way down. Not the way we treat them, but just in terms of things like salary and spans of control, it looks more like a pyramid. When we start to bring agents into the play, because we had, as a technology company and as an AI company, have access to agent technology. Atlas Copilot is built on agentic capabilities. By deploying those internally at Atlas, we realized very quickly the traditional pyramid doesn't work anymore. The information flows too quickly. And if you put someone on the top of a pyramid, it quickly becomes inverted and decisions pile up at their desk because things move so fast, they don't have time to approve and implement at the pace at which we would need to meet the speed of AI. Because we're so used to doing things in a traditional project management way, or maybe we have just a change threshold that we can absorb. What we had to do was shift to more of an ecosystem model, where if you look at this in terms of an org chart, it's not a pyramid anymore. It's a planetary solar system, with each of the people in the organization being planets and each of the bots being moons. And then how do we think about the interactivity between planets and moons? Planets and other planets, which is a traditional org chart. But what the exciting part was moons and moons. So how do you configure AI to talk to AI and to do some of the intermediary activities that would normally require two employees to sit in the same room, but no longer have to because you can deploy agents in your presence? It could be a team meeting. Could just be a one-on-one huddle, but how do you do that? And then now my HR hat comes on, part of me is like, that's super exciting, and that's an opportunity to free us from some more mundane administrivia. But are we going to then run into issues around humanity?
I would think so. I was waiting for the dramatic pause there because that was so good. But I think the answer is I think so. And when you were talking, man, some of these other questions that fired in my head from you guys sharing this stuff is, so once we're working with AI agents, beyond what we're doing now, but like they actually are like more advanced and stuff, are they going to want paid? Are they ever going to be like, hey, take this job and shove it? I'm going to go work over at this other place instead. Will we get to the point where basically a lot of the stuff that are challenges sometimes with human?
That has already happened, by the way.
Has it really?
Yeah, but not in that same way. I mean, there's no AI that has asked for payment, but there's AI that has, come back to people asking it questions with a slur or discrimination responses. So that has happened already. I mean, and that may be a little layer of what could happen, but it's already happened.
I'm going to be waiting for Alexa and Siri to be like, yeah, if you want me to answer that question, like send a Bitcoin payment to me. And then I'll be able to answer that for you.
I think companies will have more control over that.
Yeah.
So I think we'll be able, so like, for example, with Atlas, we program things like no profanity, no political discussion.
No profanity?
No profanity, Enrique, sorry.
Come on.
So like we've put some of those guardrails in place already. I think most organizations are good actors and they'll put in place some of these more human rights implications. But I don't think for a second we won't do it to ourselves, where we won't say AI is so much more productive than Matt. So let's just, AI doesn't take time off of work. It doesn't need vacation. It doesn't require benefits. It doesn't require payment, Jason. So I could save wages. I've already made the sunk cost investment into AI. Let's just, figure out more ways to use it and less ways to rely on our human beings, which slow us down. I think there's this arms race happening in AI, and speed becomes so important that, again, we go back to the incentives. If there's a race to some imaginary finish line, and at the other end of that race is a pot of gold, people will jump all over each other to get to that pot of gold.
My son, he loves video games. My older son does. And he just got the NCAA 25 football game. And you can kind of like design your own players. So my son's name is Duke Cochran. So he wanted to create Duke Cochran. And so he's in there, he's programming it saying, hey, these are the skills that I value more, that I want to have elite speed, or I want to be elite route running, because he wanted his to be a wide receiver. Enrique, what you were mentioning earlier about like the programming of the AI, like, hey, here's the role, here's what AI is going to do, the ability to go in and directly program for the needs of that role with an AI agent. That's pretty mind-blowing, like, when you think about that. Like, so let's talk a little bit. Where I'm going with that is talent acquisition. Like, the way we've done talent acquisition has evolved over the years, particularly with humans. But what is talent acquisition maybe going to look like when it comes to AI agents and programming AI agents for specific roles or job descriptions type things, functions within a business?
I want to go back to the AI agent. I'm going to imagine that if you are able to build your AI agent, you will be able to have that AI agent applying for jobs for you, right? And you don't need to customize your resume anymore. You don't need to create that crappy cover letter anymore. You don't need to be looking around to see what jobs are available. You have an AI agent talking at the same time with a couple of hundred AI agents from companies that may have now not 10 people recruiting, but maybe just one recruiter managing a team of AI agents. And they will have the conversation. They will come back to you saying, hey, Matt, you know what? I don't think this job is for you. The culture is not a good fit for you. And there's going to be another one that's going to say, like, I think this job is in the 99% percentile of what you could want out of a job, right? And then you just go and look at it to make sure that it's the right thing, like we would do, a little bit of human interaction. And that's the end of it. And then you go to a conversation with another human. All of the friction has been removed from that process. You don't need to apply anywhere. You don't need to have application process. All of that is done by your AI agent and is managed by the AI agent of that company. That cost almost zero, right? I mean, you need energy to run that operation, but that cost zero, right? And it's going to be a lot more effective, a lot more efficient. You're not going to be spending a lot of time on mundane tasks, such as applying to all of these jobs and reading the job description to see if they're the right thing for you. You just train your AI agent to understand you so well. You feed it with all the history about you and what you're looking for. You have a conversation with your AI agent saying, these are my dreams. Find me a job that can satisfy my dreams. And that's that, and that's going to happen, and it's going to happen probably very soon. I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, if Atlas Copilot, I don't know if Matt has that in the roadmap, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's already working on developing that AI, job searcher and recruiter personas within Atlas Copilot to do all of that via AI agents.
Not yet.
I'm sure you're thinking about it. Come on.
Not really.
Oh, come on.
No, because my background predominantly is HR business partner and transformation. So I'm thinking more about how do I empower HR people with the right information at the right time to have the right conversation. That's where I'm at today. Now, that might evolve 12 months down the road once we've mastered that problem, but that to me is a problem that has a very deep well to it that we need to solve for. And talent acquisition, to me, I do agree that we will see more agentic capabilities in that space. I do believe there'll be technologies that move that more quickly. As a business, I'm trying to be very hyper-focused on our use case and not trying to be all things to all people. But there's absolutely a strong use case for what Enrique is talking about. I think from the AI perspective, when it comes to agents, the transactional pieces will go away. I don't think there's any dispute about that. It's just a matter of, again, what do we replace that work with? What are we spending our time doing instead? And I don't know about you, but I want to spend more time with people. I want to spend more time building relationships. I want to spend more time introducing the unique nuance that presently AI can't add sentiment into its conversation. It's presently in a dynamic way. You can program and configure it that way, but in terms of having a dynamic colleague that you work alongside, probably not in the next 6 months. But again, we're talking about things that could, when I say not in the short term, to me the short term is 6 months. 12 months from now, all bets are off. If somebody can find a business case to build a technology and make money, it'll get built. So it's just a matter of figuring out where the opportunity in the market lies. I think for the HR profession, it's really about understanding the value that you bring to the equation, understanding how you can support organizations and be more performance oriented. And as far as I can see, organizations will still be predominantly employed with humans, at least in the next couple of years. So that work won't go away. But I read a really interesting article the other day from, was quoting the CEO of NVIDIA, obviously one of the world's largest organizations now, and one of the largest, I think it's the largest market cap in the world now, but talking about how the CIO, the head of IT, will perform more of an IT function, perform more of an HR function going forward, because they'll be tasked with configuring agents in the way that HR is equipped with configuring employees for success. So that's an interesting question in and of itself is, the IT department, of course, can work on programming and architecture and data and all those types of things, but it will likely be a cross-functional project between IT and HR to develop, Jason, to your earlier point, the perfect person for that role based on predefined specs or predefined KPIs. It's going to fundamentally change how we look at the workforce, because traditionally HR has managed the talent pool, but if the talent pool now includes technology, well, now it becomes a more murky situation.
So I think you just described our dystopian future there, Matt, that we are holding our hopes out that HR and IT can be communicating really well together on things. Can you imagine how that's going to go in most organizations? I mean, not to paint stereotypes, but it's like, can you imagine a lot of the head IT guys and HR getting on the same page together, talking about what this needs to look like together? That just cracks me up thinking about it.
I don't think IT wants to do that work, by the way. I mean, the CIOs that I know don't want to be in the configuration business. They want to be in the architecture and strategic business. So we'll see if that actually comes into pass. But it's an interesting conversation nonetheless, because it talks about what do we value? If we're valuing the productivity and the technological implementation of these agents, then it will go to IT. But if we value the interactivity between colleagues and the humanity and the culture and the values, then that's a big role for HR to play. So I think it'll all depend on how the organization views. And there are some people that just don't believe in the traditional HR function. Fine. There are some people that will believe in a new version of HR, and some that will believe in the traditional function and want to bring it over with an AI environment. So I think the interesting thing will be that you will have options to do that. And you will have the ability to use AI to fill in some of those transactional tasks going forward.
That's fascinating. So I hadn't thought about that, but that AI is going to influence culture that way. The agents are. They're going to be part of the team, just like the humans will. And yes, IT may be doing the programming of, hey, this is the role, these are the types of tasks, the things that it needs to be able to do. Those hard skills of the job, but there's still going to kind of be this soft skill conversation of like, how does it interact with the people on our team? Does it understand a lot of our values? the way that we talk to one another and those things. And HR should be, and I hope they are, the ones that are the leaders in understanding the Sallys and the Joes on the team of what's the best way of approaching and interacting them. How do you help them do their best, feel good about the work that they're doing, collaborate in the most cohesive way. And so I hadn't thought about that before, but that's really fascinating to think that IT and HR will need to lead the way in a lot of organizations to think about not only the work getting done, but also making sure they're working together to make sure that the AI agents are contributing to the culture in a healthy way.
The new kind of HR, though, I mean, the kind of HR that Matt was talking about before, the kind of HR that is on the right side of the equation, and if it's on the wrong side of the equation, that is catching up pretty quickly to move to the right side of the equation, right? That kind of HR that is capable of doing something that, I don't know if you're familiar with him, Ravin Jesuthasan, one of the thinkers about, the future of jobs and whatnot. He's talked for so long about deconstructing jobs and going to the foundational pieces of every job and saying, all right, if I can think about my everyday for work, what I do every day, and I deconstruct the X amount of hours that I spend doing my work, I have the foundational pieces, and I can say this can be done by technology. 80% of this can be done by technology. 100% of this can be done by technology. So once they understand what I do and what my team members in HR are doing, deconstructing those jobs, I'm going to have the ability at the same time to say, what are the tasks that are more likely to be fully replaced by technology or impacted by technology or AI in one way or another? How do I have to reconfigure the entire team so that I can make a space for what I know will happen? It's not if, it's when. I know that some of these tasks will be replaced in the next 6 months. Some other tasks will be replaced in the next 12 months. Some other tasks will be replaced in the next 24 months. So how do I reconfigure all of the deconstruction of that job that I just did? How do I reconfigure my team? What do they need to learn so that they can do better the things that are exclusively human for now and AI wouldn't be able to do, at least for now? And that can get you ready for what Matt is saying. So you got to do that work. That's the kind of HR that has a foot on today's reality, but the other foot is on tomorrow's challenges and opportunities. It is thinking, all right, well, today I have to continue to hire in the way that I'm hiring. I have to continue running performance management and compensation, whatever, in the way I'm doing it. But that doesn't mean that I'm not putting time and effort into preparing for what I know will with certainty happen in the next few months. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. You just get ready by that. Begin by deconstructing everything that bring your HR team together, deconstruct the whole thing, break it apart, and just think what can be done by technology and when, and start reconfiguring your team. And you will identify, by the way, that there will be a job, for example, what Matt is saying, right? You need to further collaborate with IT, which probably means that you need a better understanding of what IT does. So if that is true, you will find that maybe you were doing some kind of work with IT, hiring their people, and that represented, 90% of your time as a recruiter with IT, and the other 10% was a conversation with the hiring manager to make sure that you had the right person and the right description, right? So that hiring time would be dramatically decreased by AI because now you have the AI agents and you have technology and all of that. You can increase your opportunities for collaboration with IT or other people, which means that you may need to learn more about IT in order to have a better communication with them and better collaboration with them. So you already have deconstructed one job and you have already identified one area that will be impacted by AI and one area that you need to put effort in to improve the way you do business right now. So just to me, that's a great beginning. And that's the basic beginning of understanding how AI or technology in general, not just AI, but AI, more importantly, how it's going to impact your team, your teams in HR and your job in HR.
How do we get HR to move that direction?
Matt?
Are there many, and what I mean by that, I know that's a big question.
I'll solve
right?
that problem. Yeah.
Right. It's a simple answer. And I guess the big thing there I'm kind of thinking of is like one layer to it is there much stuff out there in terms of courses, modules, content, the way that people learn? Maybe it's podcasts or things. Are there things out there, groups that are already thinking about this really well and maybe have supportive tools or content that can help start moving HR leaders that direction? Are you aware of any?
Yeah, Hacking HR Leaders, Atlas Copilot.
There you go. Set up and spike. That's what I was trying to do. You stepped right into it, Enrique. Beautiful.
That's already for groups. We have a great partnership with Hacking HR, Atlas Copilot, and HR Leaders. We put a lot of energy creating the largest AI in HR conference in the world, which we did in December, and we're going to do again this year in December. We have other partnerships going, Transform and the conference, the events happening in Transform. So I think just these 4 groups, Matt with Atlas Copilot, Chris Rainey, Shane Kemp with HR Leaders, Hacking HR, and all the team that we have in there, and Transform. I think those are great. Those are already 4 incredible sources of knowledge. So probably Matt has more, but I think these 4 are, the best quality.
Not to be cheeky, but you could just ask ChatGPT.
Yeah. Hopefully ChatGPT tells you these are the 4.
I say, yeah, that'd be a curious experiment if we just did that right now.
Ask Atlas Copilot. It would say this 4.
I think the reality, so it's a really tough question because there's no simple answer to this, Jason, but I think it goes back to my earlier point around supply and demand. So supply is what we can do as a profession to help ourselves. We can listen to podcasts, we can go to conferences, we can attend courses, we can do research, we can use AI, we can educate ourselves so that we can be better prepared for whatever reality comes through. The other part of it, though, is what organizations expect from us. And we also play a role in that side of the equation. So I think we need to be very clear on what we see our future as being and work to build alignment with our key stakeholders in advance so that, again, we're not on the business end of somebody else's decision. So I'm also realistic to know that not every single HR person has the agency or the interest or even the environment with which to have that conversation and have it be productive. So I think if you want to look at this in broad strokes, I think it comes down to understanding where you are, understanding where you want to be, and trying to be thoughtful about closing the gap with the resources that are available to you. And if you have the ability to influence an outcome at your workplace, with your boss, with your finance department, your IT department, start talking about that stuff now. Start having conversations now to be part of the discussion. It doesn't need to be on the lens of I'm trying to save my job or my team's workforce, but it could be we want to be part of introducing AI with humanity. We want to help company make money, and if we're a for-profit business, we want to drive our share price value and all those things, and we don't want to do it at the expense of the people in the organization. So how do we find that sweet spot in between? The best time to have that conversation is today. The next best time is tomorrow. At some point, though, it will be too late. So if I was in that position, if I was a CHRO, I would have already been having those conversations already with my board, with my CEO, with my CFO and CIO, and we'd have a roadmap that we would have all built together. It may not be exactly what I would have wanted, but at least I would have had some influence versus knock, knock, knock. Hey, Matt, we had a decision. You weren't present for that meeting, but we've decided that your department's cut by 25%, and we're going to cut, and we're going to introduce everyone's going to have their own agent, and they're all going to report into IT, and we're going to use that to track your work and your productivity and your ROI to the business, and we'll make decisions based on the AI's feedback going forward in terms of your performance, in addition to your colleagues and your boss. So I don't want to be in that situation, so I want to get ahead of that conversation. That's what I'd recommend that people do. And at this point in time, Jason, there are so many good sources out there, but what I would challenge people around is go to the source wherever possible, because a lot of this information that we're seeing is just a digestion and a repackaging of somebody else's information too. So if you can get to the Sam Altmans at OpenAI and talk to Satya Nadella at, and other large organizations and just figure out who the big companies are and what the big companies are doing and use that as a guide rail, that at least begins to tell you some of the possibilities. And then go to where your passion lies, because this doesn't need to be a forced march. AI can be super exciting. I spent a lot of the Christmas break prompt engineering. It was a lot of fun. I had a great time prompt engineering our platform to deliver outcomes that I'm really proud of now. So when you click on some buttons on Atlas, I like it.
You should have seen the look on Enrique's face when he said that. He was like,
from an electrical engineer.
He told me, I want to call you on Christmas because I think we were kind of spending it, pretty much by ourselves. And he's like, let's talk. And I'm like, but Matt's not calling me because he was just doing the prompting thing. You replaced me already by AI. with AI.
It's true. I do owe you a Christmas. But for me, that was a fun activity because I was able to invest a bit into an output that I'm really proud of. And I know it's going to deliver really output for people. If you're excited about talent acquisition, then spend time talking about that. If you're excited about compensation and rewards, spend your time in that area. Like, it doesn't need to be a forced march where it's this, oh, I'm being dragged into this AI future. AI is an incredible empowerment tool. We're talking in a really negative tone because there's a bit of realism to all this. But there's also a lot of positive things that are going to happen. We talk about AI in a workplace context. It will make work better if companies choose to make it better. AI is going to unlock things in so far as medicine and healthcare. It's going to be completely transformative. It's going to completely unlock opportunities when it comes to dissemination and democratization of knowledge and access. There will be people that start companies in jurisdictions. 15 years ago, Jason, if you wanted to start a tech company, New York, London, San Francisco, right? If you weren't in those areas, you were on the outside looking in. You might have success, but you're fighting up against the curve. Now, you could build an AI company in Nairobi or in Kuala Lumpur or in Antarctica and do so with a degree of certainty and professionalism where it's democratized access to information and to opportunity. So there's some really great things that are going to happen from this. But I think the key point that I want to leave people with is none of those things happen without intention. If you're sitting here waiting for someone to do this for you, it's not going to happen. Take some personal agency, be curious, learn, grow, have conversations, and start the path. You don't need to solve it today. You don't need to solve it tomorrow. You don't need to worry about using your job next week. But let's start talking about how 6 months from now you're different, how you have more of an understanding of AI, how you spend a half an hour a week on OpenAI playing with it and testing it and tweaking it to see if you can do certain tests with it. Talk about bringing AI into your company on limited use cases and piloting it in very narrow frames so you can see the impact that it can have and be part of the journey. So this is the time for people to dig in and to be more exploratory and curious and to wrap their arms around what this whole thing is. That can be a lot of fun. So make it fun where you can.
I love that. And I'm glad that you shared that, Matt, because I am an internal optimist. I am. So I definitely, but I wanted us to also have a conversation around, okay, yes, we can be very optimistic, but what are also some of those challenges? We know obstacles that are coming that maybe we haven't even thought about yet and addressed those in today's show. But the optimism absolutely is there. I think about, I lost my mom to breast cancer 7 years ago. And to think that we could be on the cusp of vaccines for cancer, that we no longer have to do chemotherapy or go through these, what right now is the best technology we have, but these horrendous treatments to try and heal people, to think that eventually we'll have gene editing to be able to give people who were born blind, we already are doing it, the CRISPR machine, that you can give people sight back through gene editing. I mean, the capabilities of things that we'll be able to do to enhance the quality of life and solve some of these things. How about solving clean water around the world, making sure everyone has enough food, right? These are things that we truly believe AI will help us truly solve some of these things that have eluded us for so long. So, Matt, we know that in the basement for fun, when it comes to AI, you like to do some prompt engineering. Hey, Enrique, what are you doing for fun with AI? You go down to your basement. What are you doing with AI right now? That's kind of fun.
The same thing, but I'm more on the user side and not on the engineering and development side like Matt. But I use AI for everything. Just this morning, I think I did 20 different things that would have taken me a week, literally. They would have taken me a week worth of work, and I did them in a couple of hours. And I don't know if it was coincidental that we had this call this morning, but I thought, like, this is incredible that I am able to write what I am writing with my style, with my voice, my approach, and I'm using AI for it. AI is helping me with 50% of the work that I am doing. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but 50%, I take it, because that gives me a lot of time back to continue to think about other things, to fully engage in conversations like this, which I'm having with a lot of different people, and I take it. So I use AI for everything, from helping me with my work to using it as a personal therapist, and things of the kind, right? And I think that to me is really, really incredible. I am an optimist too. That doesn't mean that I don't have my concerns. I have to be realistic about the risks of AI, because it's the only way that we're going to put the guardrails in place so that it doesn't go over the boundaries that we need to set in place, that we need to put in place for AI. But going back to, and forgive me that I mentioned this example, right? But I saw this video of AI detecting cancerous cells in a woman's breast 5 years before the cancer actually developed. So that to me is just incredible, right? Something that no doctor, no radiologist would have ever seen, because it's impossible for a human to see it. And AI this is something, and it compared to millions and millions and millions of bits of data, and it said, this is a cancerous cell. So you gotta keep an eye on this, right? Because this person may develop, breast cancer in the next 3-4 years. So that to me is an incredible power that we can leverage right now for the betterment of humanity, which again takes me back to what I said before. We need governments that are capable of putting the right regulations in place, because as of now, the promise of Sam Altman and Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg is, AI will improve everybody's life. I'm like, I think it's going to improve your pockets. And that's not exactly what I am thinking about. I'm thinking about this kind of application that I just talked about, which is for the betterment of humanity. So we need agency. We need to really embrace the power of our agency. And what we have right now is the power to vote for the people that are telling us this is an amazing technology, but at the same time, it can be very dangerous if we do nothing about it. That to me is, part of what we need to think about.
I dig it. What else should we cover? Guys, we've been going for an hour and 20 minutes. You guys are crushing it, by the way. Time is flying here. What else should we be talking about around AI and HR, you think, that we haven't talked about yet? Anything come to mind?
Maybe I want to say one thing, and I hope that Matt can, I would love for him to talk a little bit more about this too, but he said before, people have agency, right? I mean, don't sit on the sidelines waiting for somebody to do the work for you. And I just want to double click on that for a second. You have agency, like whatever you work, if you are an HR practitioner, you go to your CHRO or your CPO and you say, hey, you know what? I tuned in to this podcast, and these guys, very handsome guys, were talking about, they were talking about this AI thing. They got me going, and they got me a little concerned that we are not having those conversations in our HR department. I don't think that we're having these conversations across the board in this organization. Can we do something about that? If you're a CHRO, you go to your CEO and you say, you know what? I think, AI will impact this organization. There's no doubt about that. Maybe we should start thinking about creating some governance for how AI may impact us, how we can leverage AI, and how we can get our workforce ready for that. If you're the CEO, you have to understand that AI, no matter what you do, if you bake cookies in the corner shop, in the small town like the place where I live, AI is going to impact you. Whether it is to make the cookies or whether it is to do customer support, doesn't matter. So you got to take ownership of the impact of AI, the possibilities of AI, and the risks and the challenges that AI will pose for you. So I just want to make sure that people don't think that they can sit waiting for somebody else to do this. You got to do it. Whoever you are, you got to do it. So Matt, I would love for you, kind of like empower people to think that they can do something about this.
Do my best Tony Robbins impersonation. Is that
Please,
what you're looking for?
do it.
I love it.
The power
Jokes
within.
aside,
The AI power within.
Right. Jokes aside, I think where I land on the issue is, of course, take personal agency, be part of the solution. Also understand that we're moving from transactional to conscious. And when we automate the transactional, we create space to think and reflect and demonstrate empathy and compassion and to think about things like inclusion. And if we don't take the opportunity to do those things, it's a wasted opportunity. That's why I said before, AI really can be more financially lucrative and better for humanity. But it requires people who think about the world in broad terms. They don't look through the world through a singular lens. They have a broad scorecard of things that they value, and they measure the success of the outcomes of their initiatives in part based on how it affects people around them. So for me, what I get really excited about is, yeah, free me up from all the manual mundane that I don't want to do anymore. Give me more time to think. Give me more time to create. Give me more time to iterate. Give me more time to experiment. That's really exciting stuff. So back to the earlier comment around agency, again, it doesn't need to be this like giant forced march. It can really be the path to self-actualization, a path to self-awareness. Enrique mentioned using it for therapy. I've asked ChatGPT and Atlas both, summarize what you think about me, given my search history, given my prompting history over the last year. It cut a little bit too close, I'm not going to lie. Like it was pretty good in terms of
dramatic
being able
pause
to...
too.
I
Right
know.
there.
I
at
think he
the
did
pinnacle.
I think he did it on purpose, by the way.
I didn't
think
do
he
it on
did too.
purpose. I did not do it on purpose. My Wi-Fi is not leveraging AI apparently. But that being said, it's just use the solutions around you to provide, Enrique mentioned using it for therapy earlier. Like you can use it to make yourself have more awareness. You can use it to inform email so you can show up better in the workplace with your colleagues. You can use it to unlock and illuminate things that would previously be unseen, whether it's a breast cancer diagnosis or even just the flaws in your language not being super inclusive. There's so many different ways that you can improve your situation and those around you, but it requires thoughtfulness. It requires attention and intention.
I think what happens sometimes is ChatGPT is hopping in here and it's like, you know what? If there's something being said that I don't agree with, I'm going to affect the Wi-Fi here a little bit.
Turn it off.
Right. Turn it off. I love that personal charge, trying to make it not seem like it's something so big, but, just start doing some small things today to start planting those seeds. But also the things that you guys have reiterated that I think is really important for HR leaders in particular to hear from this conversation today is start taking the steps of having conversations with some leaders in your organization you probably haven't had before, namely IT. Like that's probably a business function in a department that I guess for most HR folks that you don't have a lot of interaction with a lot of the time. And so start having those conversations about the things we were talking about in this show today, because that is going to be a very real future soon where you're not just going to be needing to work with your CEO and COO, but you will be working with IT on specific business functions that have to do with AI agents and how AI is working with the humans in your organization. And so to me, that's one really practical step today. I think that's a good one. And if you don't have someone that's a head of IT in your organization, then figure out, with the rest of your team, like, okay, we know it's coming. Here's our vision for digital transformation of how they're going to become part of our team. Then work cohesively as a team to figure that stuff out if you're not big enough to have an IT director. But make sure you're starting to have plans around it, because one thing that probably is a guarantee is if you don't engage in bringing AI talent onto your team, then you will fall behind and your business will become obsolete pretty quickly, because your competitors, they are going to be using it. They are going to be tinkering with it. They're going to be pushing the boundaries of the capabilities of what it means to bring it onto your team. So don't have that mindset of like, oh, if we just don't worry about this, if maybe we just dabble a little bit, use some generative AI for some of our social media posts. No, like dive in deeper, work with your team, start thinking about what this means to have actual AI team members and giving the artificial intelligence agents eventually some autonomy, some roles in your organization, tasks that they can do, because it will be here, as you heard Matt and Enrique say. Could be this year, definitely within the next 2 years. These things will be rolling out. If you listen to the heads, like Sam Altman of OpenAI, the heads of these AI organizations, it's farther along than what a lot of things have been shared before. Guys, as we get ready to kind of wrap up here, just closing thoughts here. Enrique, let's start with you. Just some closing thoughts that you want to leave before we sign off here soon.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jason, for inviting us to be part of this conversation, relaunching your podcast in video and audio format. So good job. And I'm sure you're going to be inviting some really awesome people. I can't wait to hear all the conversations that you will have. So thank you so much for inviting us to be some of your guests. Obviously, always a pleasure to share the screen with Matt, who not only is so knowledgeable, as you already know, and is the founder of Atlas Copilot, and but he's also a very good friend. We've been friends for many years now, and so it's always a privilege to share the stage with him. And perhaps my parting thought for everybody is just take ownership. The worst thing that we can do is to let people do for us what's going to affect us. There was a saying, I can't remember who said it or where I read it, but I do remember it. It says, what is done for me without me is against me. And that's the way I think about AI. This pitch by these ultra rich people, Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and all these guys saying, yeah, AI is going to make your life better. No, I will believe it when I have agency, and my agency is considered in the conversation, not because you are telling me that it's going to be good for me, because I don't believe it that way. So everybody has agency at different levels. If you're a professional, you have agency. If you're a CEO, CHRO or a CEO, you have agency. If you are, a school board member, if you're a city council member, if you're a mayor, if you're a governor, you have a different kind of agency, but all of us have some agency, and we have to get involved. We can watch this from the sidelines. So that is my parting thought.
I would just add, be curious. There's so much stuff happening, and we're just beginning what's going to be a very transformative and long journey. We've turned the corner on Gen AI, but now it's going to open up so many different opportunities. And if you remain curious, you can stay on top of the trends, and you can look at things through the lens that I think we've discussed, Jason. It's just find that balance. Be real, be practical, but let's not be necessarily naysayers. Look for the good in this, and curiosity is a great place to start from.
I love that. And you guys are so good together. You should do a podcast together, right?
We might.
Oh, wait. You guys are. Tell us about that real quick, too. Tell us about that, right? Tell us about the AI HR podcast.
At the intersection of AI and HR. Enrique and I have been having conversations for the better part of a couple of years. We just didn't record them. So we're like, hey, we should actually record these because people might benefit from the conversation, if nothing else, than to think about things differently. So really excited to partner with Hacking HR on the AI HR podcast. We're bringing together a bunch of different professions. This is not just simply an HR podcast. We're bringing in heads of AI, heads of IT, academics, professionals in the political sphere to have a really robust conversation. I'm super excited to dig into it on a personal level, but really looking forward to unlocking some honest truths for our audience.
So good, so good. And so we're going to throw these in the show notes. But again, Enrique Rubio, founder of Hacking HR. Check out Hacking HR. Matt Burns, founder of Atlas Copilot AI. Want you to check them out too. And then the AI HR podcast. We're going to have a link to check out their show also. So thanks for tuning in. We'll look forward to being with you next time. And Matt and Enrique, thanks, guys. We'll continue the conversation another day.
Thank you.
Susan?
Thanks for tuning in to Working Forward. If you like what you hear, please hit the subscribe button wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Until next time, here's to building tomorrow today.